Hi, everybody. With our Legend Story Talks, we look to speak to inspiring people, entrepreneurs, change makers, and innovators who are living their passions and purpose and looking to positively change and impact the world. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Joyce Shulman, who is the CEO and co-founder of 99 Walks and Jetti Fitness, where she looks to inspire women to connect, and she's also on a mission to get 1 million women walk their way to better. Joyce is also a podcaster, TEDx speaker, and also author of the book Walk Your Way to Better 99 Walks That Will Change Your Life. She also does consulting where she consults to women's groups and companies. So, Joyce, thank you so much for taking part in our conversation today.
It's my honor and pleasure to be here. But wow, when you go through that bio, I sound really busy. I think I sound a little too busy.
No, no, definitely you're a very busy lady. So, well, let's get started because you've got quite an interesting background. So, perhaps you can give us a little bit of the story from your corporate times until 99 Walks.
Sure. So, as we were chatting about before we went live, I started my career as an attorney. I practiced some white collar criminal defense and complex civil litigation and worked for a fantastic firm in New York City. And there were parts of that I really loved. I loved the intellectual challenge. And when I reflect on it, one of the things that I loved about my work is that every new case that came in was a whole gave me the opportunity to learn a whole new business, a whole new industry, a whole new cast of characters, and kind of that piece of it, that intellectual challenge and the team aspect of it. I loved all of that. But at the end of the day, I realized that number one, my job was to make other people's problems go away. And that's not super satisfying because I've always been very entrepreneurial in my spirit. And I've always wanted to build and create and bring value. So there's sort of that piece of it. And in something that I think you and I share a little bit, I wasn't really great about other people telling me what to do and when to do it. So about 25 years ago, my husband, who's been my co-founder and business partner since we were married, and I quit our jobs, left New York City, and started the first of our entrepreneurial endeavors. So that was sort of how I got to this.
Okay. So, what was a first entrepreneurial endeavor? What was,
Ah, yeah. So we made natural, organic dog treats, horse treats, and cat treats. We started a company called the Rover Group. We were selling our product in all 50 states across the US. We had three different manufacturing plants, and it was a catastrophe of the highest order. So we really lost everything. We lost the proceeds of the sale of our apartment. We lost our retirement funds. We lost our family and friends' money. It's everything that first entrepreneurial uh, endeavor can be. Uh, so yeah, that's where it started. Fortunately, it got better from there.
No, definitely. And so what was next? Like, so obviously, a lot of people would have like given up, and then you've kind of like managed to reinvent yourself a couple different times. So which is an incredible thing in itself. So what was after Rover?
So after Rover, we moved into the world of alternative media, alternative and out of home media. And we were in that business for about 5 years. And then we moved into digital publishing. And we founded a company called Macaroni Kid, which publishes, it's still in business, publishes community focused newsletters and websites featuring everything happening for kids and families in about 550 communities across the US and Canada. We ran that company for about a decade, maybe 12 years. We exited in August of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, which was sort of crazy. And we did that. Honestly, we had been doing that for long enough. We were restless. We had built it to where we thought we could take it. And both Eric, my husband, and my passion is around fitness and wellness. He's a competitive CrossFit athlete. and fitness wellness has always been part of our lives. So that is what led us to this world of walking for fitness and wellness.
Awesome. So before we talk about 99 Walks, a question I'd like to ask everyone is, um, have you discovered your purpose or passion? It seems you have, like you've kind of like fallen into it. So what do you think is your passion or purpose?
I I think there's an intersection, and this wellness and fitness world actually is at that intersection because what drives me, what my purpose is creating community and forging connections. But what I always say is we've never known more about what it takes to be fit and well from a research standpoint as we know right now. And yet, as a planet, we are getting less healthy and less well. Right. And if you stop and think about it, that's crazy. We know more than we've ever known. So what's the missing piece of that? And I believe from my research, from thousands of conversations with people and women in particular, that's what's missing is community. So, sorry, that's a really long answer to my purpose is creating these kinds of meaningful communities that give people what they need to enable them to be their best live their best lives. It sounds like a little bit of a cliche, but it's true. We need community and it's sorely lacking in so many places.
No, definitely. So your company preceding 99 Walks was certainly about building communities as well. So was there a particular aha moment where you kind of like realized this is what I'm all about? Like you've left corporate world, you've tried a number of different entrepreneurial endeavors, and then you started on this one, and then it seems now you kind of really found it, and then now you're kind of like continuing to build on that. So was there a moment that arrived?
It's really building blocks. And it's so funny to have this conversation with you because my husband has always wanted to find his one true purpose. And I have always been much more comfortable with the idea that I don't have one true singular purpose. For me, every piece of my professional and personal life has been a building block towards the next. And I'm definitely not prepared to say that this is my purpose. I'm doing it now and I'm done. Like this is now, but I'm really open to what's next and how I continue to elevate that and kind of what's the next building block. So I guess what I'm saying is like I'm good now, but I'm not done.
Yeah. No, I guess it's kind of like an evolving thing, isn't it? You kind of like add to it, you keep on
Yeah.
refining it as you learn more about yourself and then the experiences you're having. I think it's very few people in the world kind of like wake up one day and go like, this is it, black and white, nothing else, and then I'm going to dedicate my life to that. It's kind of more, I have an idea and this is what it is. So
Doctors and pilots. Apparently, doctors and pilots are among the people who all their life they're like, all I want to do is be a pilot. That's my thing.
very good. So even though you haven't got one purpose, it's clear that you have something going on there. So do you think it's possible to feel fulfilled with life unless you're kind of like moving towards something that drives you passionately and purposefully?
It's I wonder about that because I am so driven by building, creating, and seeing my ideas come to fruition. And sometimes I ask myself, like, and I reserve the right, we were talking about building and iterating and all of that. And I reserve the right to one day be like, no, I'm good. I'm going to the beach and I'll see you in a decade. So I don't know. For me right now, I need to keep going, keep building. There's a very dear friend of my family. She is 93 years old, and 2 years ago at 92, she started her first entrepreneurial endeavor. She's always worked, she's always done things, she's always been engaged, super active in not-for-profits, but she just spun up a business, 92 years old. So I don't know.
Very good. I like that story. So, what would you say? Well, this is a good lead into the next question, actually, because there are a number of people out there who have an idea on what drives them, what they're passionate about, but they're too scared to take the next step. So, what would you say to them?
There are two ways to go about that in my mind. The first is to just take the leap of faith. And one of the things that at least I have found helpful around that is kind of going through a worst case scenario exercise. What is really the worst case scenario? What is your downside risk? Because for most people looking at that question, the downside risk is not, I'm going to end up on the street, or I'm not going to be able to feed my family. If that really is your downside risk, you have to tread carefully, but you have to be kind of realistic about what is your downside. If your downside is that big, then there is, especially with where we are now and all the technology and all the tools out there are so many things that you can start as a side hustle and see where it leads. There are so many ways to test things and see, because the other piece of it is sometimes the things that you dream about doing, the reality of them are not actually what you think. And I've seen this so many times in other people and myself. If you take a hobby or something that you love to do and you turn it into your work, it loses some of what you loved about it. So I do think you need to be really thoughtful, but I also, on a personal level, am a tremendous risk taker as far as all of those things go. And if it calls to you and it's something you want to do, write the book, start the business, take the trip, do the thing.
Awesome. Very good. So, not be well, for people who are not a risk taker, there's obviously a few limiting beliefs or personal doubts that kind of hold them back. Have you ever had any of these? Doesn't seem like you have, or if you have, how have you worked through that process?
Um, I mean, I think that is part of the uh, illusion, for lack of a better word. And I want to be really clear, like, I'm scared all the time. I'm tired often. I am always scared that something's not going to work. But one of the things that I say, actually, that Eric and I, my husband and I both say often is, well, how hard can it be? You see other people doing X, Y, or Z. It must be possible. How hard can it be? And then the reality is, it's typically harder than I think it is. I think if I was really clear about how challenging something was going to be, I would never do it. But that is also part of where the passion comes from. Because if this is something that you are passionate, I am crazy, deeply passionate about the power of walking, the transformative power of an intentional walking practice. And I literally can geek out on that for hours at a time. And I am equally as passionate about empowering women and bringing them together. And I can't stop doing that. So I think there is an element of what is it that drives you forward? Because it is going to be really hard and really scary.
No, I like that because I've seen this as well. No, a number of people leave professional careers and then they want to be an entrepreneur, inverted commas. So they go buy a business or they join a franchise or something like that. And invariably it doesn't work. Some are successful at it, and the underlying reason they're not successful is because the business actually isn't anything related to what they're passionate about. So they're not willing to do the hard work because nothing's easy, because they're not driven by it. So, once they don't get the results, the same results they perhaps experienced in their corporate career, they kind of like lose enthusiasm pretty rapidly and then they just kind of like flick it on as quickly as possible. So I think the underlying is you really do need to understand what kind of like motivates and inspires you before you make that next jump into, the entrepreneurial kind of like world.
Yeah. Can I share my three-part test, our
Sure.
three-part test for a new business idea? So, and I think this is helpful for people. It's such a crazy oversimplification. But if you have a business idea, I like to begin by start putting it through this three-part test. So, part number one, is there a need for this? Is there a gap in the market? Is this something that I think people would be interested in, people want, people need? Question number two is on like a super top back of the envelope basis. Do the economics work? Right. Not a ton of time, but maybe you spend an hour of research. Okay, it's going to cost X to make this product. I don't think people, whatever, very top line back of the envelope, might the economics work? If you get through one and two, the third question is actually the most important. And it goes to exactly what you were saying, which is, do I actually want to wake up every day and do this? And we have killed so many businesses on that. I literally just the other night was talking to my niece who is thinking about doing something entrepreneurial, and she's thinking about uh, some kind of retail. She's got this vision for retail. And yeah, I think there's a need for it. I think there's a beautiful vision. But I was like, do you want to get up every day and be the person unlocking the door at 9 and staying there till 6 every day? Not so much. So it's that goes to exactly what you're saying, which is, do you actually want to do that thing every day?
No, very good questions. I think that's going to be very helpful to a lot of people. I mean, as you said, like if you don't answer one and two, one and two is easy, but number three, I think, is the most kind of like challenging. Most people don't really have that. So, well, now let's talk a little bit about 99 Walks. So, what is it exactly you guys do?
99 Walks is a social fitness app focused on women walking and wellness. And the model is fairly simple. We've built this beautiful app that enables our members to submit and set their own monthly walking goal. We don't dictate how far, how fast, how anything. There's a lot of really interesting research around the idea that when people set their own goals, they're more likely to achieve them than if they're handed a goal. So we think that's an important part of the equation. And then our members track their monthly intentional walks. It's not about step counting. It's about carving out some measure of time to step away from your obligations, your responsibilities, your computers, and enjoy all the benefits that a walk can deliver. And then at the end of the month, our members who achieve their goals, we send them a skinny cuff bracelet engraved with the theme of the month. Every month, there's a different theme. We talk a lot about that during the course of the month. We do a lot of work around mindset and grit and determination and all of the things. And then we have a team of fitness coaches, walking coaches, who lead walking classes every day of the week.
Awesome. So, what's the mission? So, what is it you're hoping to achieve?
We're honestly, truly, we're achieving it every day because the feedback that we are receiving from our members is just off the charts, unlike anything. I've been in business now a long time. It's unlike anything I have ever received from people with whom I've worked, but it's been life changing for people. And what seems a really simple practice, this intentional walking practice, is truly transformative on many, many levels.
So basically, you're looking to inspire wellness in women, especially, and getting them to kind of feel they're included to, kind of like benefit their fitness going forward. So when you say walk your way to better, what does that mean exactly?
So that's the title of my book. Thank you for that. And in the book, I have 99 stories and thought starters. I believe that many of us, myself included, run through our days and often don't give ourselves the time and the opportunity and the bandwidth and the space to really think through some of the things that our lives deserve us to think about. So my hope and my mission of the book is that people will read a thought starter, read a story, read some research, and take it with them so that they have the opportunity to let their mind think about it a little bit.
Awesome. And so what is it you want people to kind of like take away and the experience they have with 99 walks, which obviously you're doing very successfully. So what is it you want them to kind of like be telling all their friends about the experience?
The word that we keep hearing from our members is transformative. And again, I know, right? I'm encouraging you to get out and take a walk 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 60 minutes. And it's perhaps a little bit of a leap to say that that practice alone can change everything, but physical changes, dramatic physical changes, mental changes. It's incredibly good for your brain, your clarity, your executive function, your creativity. I told you I could geek out on all these things. Um, and for your mood, walking has been shown to be as effective for people with mild depression as medication.
No,
I mean, the benefit.
I'm fully on board with you. Like I make like obviously I have a focus on more the fitness side of things, but then walking is kind of like something I make myself do every day. So like actually I take my son to school and then I walk home. So I take him with an Uber because we live in a city, so there's no point having a car. So I'll take him with an Uber and then I walk back. It's like a 40-minute walk and then I go pick him up, do the 40 minutes and walk back 40 minutes. And it's not for exercise, it's just for chill time. It's kind of like just kind of like relax, and then on the weekends, we'll do exactly the same. We'll choose like leafy, if we can't get away for the weekend, we'll choose leafy neighborhoods and just wander and have a conversation. So, like, I'm on board. Like, walking is certainly one of the most powerful things you have for, not only moving the body, but just kind of like feeling relaxed and, happy with your life.
Yeah, but don't diminish the power of it for your body as well. I know you do other things, as do I, as does my husband. But that you are lowering your levels of cortisol, which has all kinds of effects. And some of the more intense workouts that many of us do. I mean, I'm a CrossFitter as well. And not that it's bad to spike your cortisol in those ways, but you are spiking your cortisol when you're going hard. And walking provides the perfect balance to bring those levels down, among about a million other things it's doing for your joints and doing for your brain. I mean, I could cite you some research, which I won't, but just trust me that especially your audience tends to be, as I understand it, people who are in their 40s, their 50s, and beyond. And the protective power of a regular walking practice for your brain health long term is beyond, and it is beyond stretching, and it is beyond resistance training, all of which is important. But when you're talking about maintaining your brain health as you age, there is nothing better than exactly what you're doing, which is that daily kind of consistent walking. So I'll get off my soapbox, but it's, you're doing it because it makes you feel better and it fires up your creativity and it relaxes you, but you are having tremendous impact on your physical plant as well.
No, no, sorry, I didn't mean to kind of like sound like I was diminishing it. I actually included because I work a lot sitting down, and it's a way to ensure in a kind of like less impactful kind of like way that I'm moving my body, because I also
Yep.
kind of come to realize that later in life you kind of like start seizing up a little bit, even though you're doing your intense workouts, unless you keep on moving, you still
Yeah.
feel pretty stiff. So that's why I do make it a regularly everyday kind of like activity. So that you got a very big supporter here. So
Yeah.
certainly on board.
I can, as I've said a couple of times, like I can get high on the soapbox of preaching the value of walking. Not again, like that shouldn't be the only thing you do necessarily, but no matter what you're doing, it brings so much value.
No, brilliant. So where would you like 99 Walks to go? So you've already kind of like spun out or an addition with Jetti Fit. So what can we expect to see happening with 99 Walks in the future?
So yeah, Jetti Fitness is our product line. And the question that we have been working on for several years has been, how do you elevate a walk? How do you transform a walk into a full body workout? And taking a little bit of inspiration from the Nordic walking trend in Europe, which is not as robust at all in the US, and then asking the question, is there a way to elevate that, to create a product that enables people to take their workout with them wherever they go? And some of this comes inspired by the pandemic, though we started working on the idea before it. But part of what happened in the pandemic is people realized, like, I want to be out and move my body. I want to be outdoors and move my body. I don't want to be on a gym schedule. I want to. So, how do we empower that? So, Jetti poles are the first product in a line of coming products designed to help people really transform their walks.
Awesome. Sounds pretty exciting. So now let's talk a little bit about yourself, a little bit more about what kind of like drives you, so people can get a perspective on what it takes to be an entrepreneur. So let's start with that first question. What does drive you?
If I'm going to be really honest, well, I'll give you the good and the maybe not so good. So, right, the good is that I am deeply passionate. I'm sure you could hear it in the power of walking. So underrated, so underutilized, so accessible. And I want to share that mission with literally everybody I possibly can, because I think it has the power to change the world. And I want nothing short than to change the world. So I have really big dreams, really big goals. And then on a more day-to-day basis, I have come to realize and accept the fact that I'm a little bit of a dopamine junkie, and I love to check things off my list and get stuff done.
Very good. So what about from a goal setting perspective? Are you a big goal setter?
I am a big goal setter, but one of the things that I've learned, and this is really subtle and it's going to be hard for me to articulate it, but I need to set a goal and sort of put it out there. And then I need to immerse myself in the work and the journey. I just need to get lost in doing the work. So I know some people can be super focused on the goal. Our goal is to get 1 million women walking, and I'm going to get up every day and shoot towards that goal. For me, it has to be a little bit more of, okay, here's what I need to do to get there. And now I need to immerse myself in that journey and keep that goal kind of out there rather than right here. And I don't think I'm explaining that clearly, but that's sort of how I have to do it.
No, you've articulated it pretty clearly. I think because a lot of research is now kind of like indicating that if you have a big, overwhelming goal and that's all you kind of like focus on, you kind of like miss the steps behind. It's very easy to kind of like get unmotivated as you go along because obviously there are lots of steps before you reach that big goal. And so what you're doing is kind of like breaking up in smaller goals and then focusing on them and the journey along the process to getting to that goal as opposed to always focusing on the goal. So most research would indicate that you're probably using a very good approach to goal setting.
It's hard to it's there's not a lot of clarity around it, right? Like, it's much easier. The people who set big goals now break it down into pieces, and uh, people have strived to put a lot of process around goal setting and goal accomplishment. And I wish I had more clarity around that process for myself,
Yeah,
other than like, it's kind of floating out there, and every day I get up and do the work and hope I'm going in the right direction.
very good. So what's your definition of success?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And on the list of things that I think about, especially now, I do think that at a certain age, and I'm 57, 58, I don't know, I'm 57 or 58. I always have trouble keeping that straight. I'm 57. Got it. I do think that at some point you do start re-evaluating your definition of success, because I am consciously and aggressively striving to stay off the hedonic treadmill. And I literally had an issue earlier today when I was talking to a friend of mine who's actually a coach, and she was telling me about this client she had who just tripled her salary. And I was like, I should go get a job. I should get a job and triple my salary. And then I'd have more money. And then, right. So it's so easy to get caught up in that. And it requires, I think, at least in the US, right? In the US where I am and the world that I'm living in, it is it takes conscious effort not to get caught up in that and to really be thoughtful about what your definition of success is. Um, so it, of course, starts with, if you've got kids, which I do, it starts with being sure that your family is safe and secure, right? That's all the research on happiness. You do, the people who say happiness doesn't lead to money doesn't buy happiness. It's actually not true. If you don't have enough money to be safe and secure, but once you do, then nope, not much help there, right? So what is success? For me, it's building something of value, it's having impact, and it's the opportunity to get up every day and do, I was going to say work that I enjoy, but there are days I don't enjoy it. So I guess it's getting up every day and doing work that you believe has value.
Very good. So, as you indicated, like in this journey of yours and everyone else who's starting businesses, there are moments where, it gets a little bit overwhelming, doesn't it? There are lots of obstacles, things don't work. And so what is it you use beyond the passion to kind of like push through that to keep yourself motivated? Because not every day is a pretty day, is it?
No, and here's like the dirty little secret, like most days are not. Um, I've started focusing. So I used to focus my team every Friday. We have a daily huddle. Our team has a daily huddle at 9 a.m. And on Friday, I would start huddle with the question of wins for the week. And I wanted everybody to share the wins for the week. And I've been reading recently Flourish by Martin Seligman, who's the father of positive psychology. Brilliant, just brilliant. Um, and he has reframed that for me to what went well, and that's been really helpful because unless your business and your life is an utter catastrophe, which is possible, but assuming it's not and you're building something that at least has a little bit of forward momentum, if you ask yourself and you ask your team what went well, you're going to find a lot of things, and that lets you build on those things. So on those crappy days, and there are many of them, I will try to start the day with what went well from the day before in my own head. I'll try to close out the day with what went well. And I'm telling you, like 10 things could go south, but there's going to be something that went well, hopefully.
Very good. No, that's a very good point. Like it's very easy to focus on the negative and not kind of like identify what's really working.
Yeah.
So let's kind of like build on this as well. So what has been your biggest failure?
Oh, there's not one. My entrepreneurial journey is littered with failure, failed projects, failed businesses. We moved our offices, gosh, I guess it's probably 5 years ago now. And our old office had this very large basement space. It was a great office, great space. And the basement was the whole size of the office. So it was huge. And it gave us the flexibility to just like store stuff in the basement, right? You don't want to put it in the dumpster because maybe, so when we moved out of the office, it was a trip through all of my failures. Basement was a trip through all of my failures. There was the accessories company, there was the coffee company, there was the legal career that I walked away from. I walked away from it, but maybe that was a failure. Maybe that's what I should have stayed with. Where would I be now if I had stayed on that path? Oh my gosh, there was the kids cooking challenges that we were doing. I had pots and pans and so long way of saying there is not one failure. There are hundreds of them.
Very good. But each is kind of like teaches you something, doesn't it? So that kind of helps you.
I mean, that's what they say. Some of them, I suppose, but some of them, you're just like, what was I thinking? That was a terrible idea.
Yeah, I guess that Einstein quote about insanity. Sometimes, if you don't you keep on doing similar things with a different kind of like business, and then you certainly didn't learn from the last one, did you? So, no, that's an interesting point. So, what else can we talk about? What do you think is going to help the audience kind of like help them on their journey towards kind of like living their passions? So, what are some things you would like to share?
It is about continuing to try things. And something I've seen actually with some of the older people in my life, my parents and some people who are really aging up, and there is research on this, people tend to become more fearful, more careful. And I think knowing that that might be the tendency as you're in your 40s, as you're in your 50s, we have to try to consciously compensate for that tendency to become more fearful. If in fact you want a big life and you want big dreams and you want big adventure, you have to know that on some level your wiring or your or society or whatever it is that's going to be in there is going to be telling you to tread carefully, and you're going to have to work a little bit harder to push back against that to chase those dreams at any time.
Brilliant. So one of the big things in the last two businesses you've had has been kind of like community, especially like with 99 Walks. So for anyone who's looking to, who's kind of like realized their purpose, has taken some of the steps you have and now going to get started and are interested in building a community around that purpose, what would you say are the key ingredients they need to get right to be able to build that community?
The first place I'll start, and I think this is really important, especially these days. We have, during the course of 99 Walks, had many partnerships with many large companies, and we continue to have those conversations. And invariably, when we talk with the marketing director for some multi-million dollar company, within 3 minutes, because now we're timing it, because now it's a game to us. Okay. Now we play a game. And the game is how long into the conversation until this person says, what we're really looking to do is build our community. Because the first thing I say, and I'll call bullshit on that. Can I curse on your,
Sure, go for
I
it.
just did. I call bullshit on that because what I always say to people is your audience is not your community. People who are trying to build a big social following, have at it. There's value in that. But that is not a community. A community arises when the people in that community communicate and support one another. Your audience is you to them. Your community is them coming together and supporting each other. So, whatever the model is, whatever the business is, whatever you're trying to create, if one of the core things you want to build in that is community, you have to be focused on how to give your people the tools, the access, and the reason to connect with one another. So that's one of the most important things. And a reminder, your audience is not your community.
No, that's a very good point. Like as you said, a lot of people get carried away with building a social following, but those people don't really care about them really. I mean, they're not doing anything, are they? So,
And I'm not suggesting that there's not value in that, right? If there are people out there, if you can build that following and people are consuming your message or you can sell to them, there's value in that. Have at it, but don't mistake that for a true community. Two very different things, both valuable but different.
yep, no, definitely. So, what's the legacy you would like to leave? So, it's a question I like to ask everyone. So, you're obviously a very passionate person. You've done a number of different business kind of like ventures, and then, as you said, the journey's not going to stop because you don't know what's next for you. So, but what is the kind of like contribution and impact you would like to leave on the world? So, when you go back, when you're about 90 years old or plus, and you may be sitting on that beach you were talking about before, you're looking back and you go, yes, I'm very happy. I've left this in the world. What would that be?
So Unfortunately, I can't actually do that because that question, by its nature, would force me to contemplate my own mortality, something which I am just not mentally and emotionally prepared to do. Um, but again, it is truly about impact. It really is. I believe very much in um, the spider web of impact. And what I mean by that is that if I can improve the health of one mom, research shows that that's going to have a positive impact on the health of her children, which then by definition is going to have an impact on those children's children. And it's, you can't measure it, you can't figure it out, but I believe in the spider web of positive impact. And that's kind of what I hold on to.
Awesome. So, what is the world you'd like to see us all live in? So, if you were looking at the world, what would the world look like from your perspective?
Well, that's really a big question because I would throw out so much of what's broken in the world. I mean, so much. You can't. It When you look at some of the things going on right now, when you look at just as a microcosm of all of the awful things going on, you look at the war in Ukraine, and you stop and you ask yourself, are we still people where one country just like rolls into another and starts killing people? Like, aren't we better than that? So when you say what kind of world, like it's such a big question because I am perplexed that we as a globe are still people who do that. So I suppose then the easy answer is a world in which that is inconceivable, where that just doesn't even compute as something that anybody would contemplate. And I think if we can get to a place where we as people, as citizens, as states, as nations, wouldn't even dream of doing something like that, then probably we're off to a decent start.
No, very good. So, a related question, but like if you had an opportunity to speak to the world and there was one message of hope you'd like to give the world, what would that be?
I do think that as a species, we're getting better. And I think that there's a really careful balance that we need to strike between understanding and really recognizing that the work is not done. We have so far to go, as I was just saying. The flip side of that is we are getting better. And it's easy to throw up our hands and say like, oh, as a planet, like we've just screwed it up so badly it's beyond hope. um, I think somehow we have to come back from that and say, okay, here's what went well, right? It goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Okay, here's what went well, how do we build on that?
No, definitely. And then the next step is, realize that whatever you do, the decisions and choices you make can have a positive impact. Like back to your spider web kind of like message. You just need to impact one thing and then it has a ripple on effect. And then that can have like a multiplier effect if you
Yep.
take action.
Yep, exactly.
So, coming near the end, there's a number of questions that I like to ask each of our guests. So, question number one: what's your definition of ageless living?
So ageless, there are certain physical realities that come with aging, but ageless living to me is not letting your age define the opportunities available to you. I had a crisis when I was in law school, actually, one day when I realized I went to law school young. I was 20 years old, and I realized one day that I was too old to go to the Olympics. Now, I had no sport, right? It's not like my whole life I've done X and I wanted to go to the Olympics as a figure skater. I had no sport, but I suddenly had this crisis that that opportunity was closed to me. And fast forward like 20 years, I write about this actually in my book. Fast forward many years, I actually did some research on oldest people who went to the Olympics. And you know what? People go to the Olympics in like their 60s. So it is getting ourselves out of the mindset that our opportunities become limited by our age.
Brilliant. So what's your definition of wellness?
There's a word that I love around wellness, which is vitality. And that may sound like just a synonym to wellness, but it's not. So, my definition of wellness is having that feeling of vitality. And I say that because people who are ill, people who have chronic diseases, can still feel vital, can still have a sense of vitality. It's a different kind of thing. It's a little bit of a, not to sound all woo woo about it, but it's like a little bit of a life force thing, right? So, wellness is being in a place where your vitality can still shine through.
Very good. So, and let me see here. What is the secret to longevity?
Really? You're going to give me that softball?
No, because it's each to our own. We'll have kind of like our particular perspective on what longevity is, and then what we need to do to get to where we want to go. And even though I know you're going to live forever, because that's the end
Right.
goal.
But the softball around that for me is it's walking. It's walking.
Very
And
good.
the research is that a regular walking practice can add up to 7 years to your life, dramatically reduce your risk of dementia, dramatically reduce your risk of Alzheimer's, dramatically reduce your risk of several types of cancers, keep you moving, improve your balance. Should I keep going? So, honestly, the secret to longevity, I know it sounds so simple, but it's exactly what you are doing every day, which is that consistent, regular walking practice. That is the secret to longevity.
Brilliant. So now we've got questions more related to the people just reaching 40. So, what advice would you give to someone who's approaching 40 or has just reached 40 and is viewing it all negatively, going, oh my God, it's all kind of like downhill from here? Both of us know that's not the case, given we're in our 50s. So, what would you say to them?
Uh, embrace that. Embrace the fact that if that milestone is forcing you to take a good hard look at your life, embrace that and go on that journey. Let yourself go on that journey. Because if you are 40 and you are living a life that isn't what you want it to be, it's a really good opportunity to start to effectuate change. So the easy answer is to say nothing changes, right? In your 40s, nothing changes. Like you're fine. Just don't worry. But I think the better answer is if something in your heart is screaming that is this all there is? I think it's worth taking that journey because maybe it is time to make a change.
Brilliant. So, what is a life principle or life philosophy or mantra you use for yourself?
Yeah, I really don't have one, because it does change, it's ever evolving, and right this moment, as we talked about, my mantra right now, truly, is asking myself what went well.
Very good. So, what are three life lessons you've learnt in life that you would like to share with other people? So, imagining now you're back on that beach again, relaxing after all the great things you've done, and then you're going, there's some things I'd like to impart on, the younger generation or the next generations coming up based on all my experience. What would be the top three things?
One thing has nothing to do with what we've been talking about, but it is, I think, one of the most important life lessons that I was ever given as a young parent. And my dad, who is a teacher and an educator, gave me a piece of advice one day. And we had gone skiing. And my husband and I had put our son, our 3-year-old son, in daycare. And it wasn't great. He wasn't unsafe, but this was like the daycare was in the basement and it smelled a little musty. And like this was not going to be a fabulous, enriching day for my kid. And we had paid for it and we went out and we went skiing. And I felt so guilty. And my dad said to me, you know, we don't do our kids any favors by making sure every experience they have is perfect. And I was like, you're right. We want them to be resilient. We want them to learn to navigate challenges. We don't want every experience. And yet, as parents, we have this strong urge to run around and make sure everything is perfect for them. And that I actually share that piece of advice with everyone I possibly can, because I think so many parents out there, I mean, we were even talking about this earlier before we went live, around this idea that parents want to try to make everything safe and secure, and we're not doing our kids any favors. So parents need to give themselves a little bit of a break on things. So that's one. The second is, sounds like such an oversimplification, but be kind to the people you love. As human beings, we have a tendency to be less kind to the people closest to us because we can get away with it. And that is really the wrong approach. So work really hard to be kind to the people you love. And the last, and I know, I'm sorry, I'm a broken record, but walk every day. Walk every day. It'll save and change. It'll change and save your life.
Awesome. So last question, this is the most important. So what does living your best life, or what I call a legend life, mean to you?
It is a little bit of a wrap up of what we were talking about, which is living a life that, excuse me, aligns with your values and that you think is making a positive impact on your life and on the world around you, and one that lets you do the things that fuel your spirit as well. It can't be all give all the time. It has to be, how you give has to be in a way that also fuels your spirit. That's the
Brill-
magic.
Brilliant. Well, Joyce, thank you so much. It's been wonderful talking to you. Certainly very inspirational. Really enjoyed the conversation. I'm sure the audience will as well. So for anyone interested in learning a little bit more about yourself, and then obviously 99 Walks and Jetti Fit, how can they find you online?
My personal website is joyceshulman.com. That's SH, there's no C in Shulman, so joyceshulman.com. 99 Walks can be found at 99walks.fit and on all the social channels, and Jetti Fitness, jettifit.com. And again, all the social channels, Jetti Fit.
Brilliant. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you. So fun.